This is the David Webb Show. David Webb.
When you were kids, you all admired the champion marble shooter, the fastest runner, big league ball players, the toughest boxer. Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. I will be proud to lead you wonderful guys into battle anytime, anywhere. That's all.
Today is August 7th, and it is also Purple Heart Appreciation Day. The Purple Heart Medal is awarded to members of the U.S. Armed Forces who are wounded by an instrument of war in the hands of the enemy, and posthumously to the next of kin in the name of those who are killed in action or die of wounds received in action. It is specifically a combat decoration. Tonight is also the first Wednesday of the month, and when we do our special on general leadership. What is leadership? Are leaders those who seek it or have it thrust upon them? Is there one definition, or do we define it in our actions? Spearheaded by U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Michel and his team at GeneralLeadership.com, and my team at the David Webb Show, each month we bring you life and leadership advice from America's most trusted leaders. Each month we will highlight the doers, those who exemplify the 12 virtues of leadership. The 12 virtues are courage, compassion, service, honesty, persistence, humility, selflessness, hope, creativity, self-control, grace, and integrity. And tonight our focus is on service. My co-hosts for General Leadership, U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Michel, assumed the duties this week as Commanding General, NATO Air Training Command, Afghanistan, and commander of the 438th Air Expeditionary Wing. And in yet an even more unique broadcast, General Michel joins us now from Afghanistan. General Michel, my friend, what a unique opportunity that you have presented to this show and to this audience.
Well, David, thank you. It's a joy to be back on the air with you and our entire team, and a special morning for me and evening for our family in the United States to broadcast from Afghanistan, where we're surrounded by great patriots that are living out the virtue of leadership every day and helping establish a resilient Afghan Air Force.
General, this sounds like a very unique mission there in Afghanistan, and we're working with a half-second delay, so I guess I do have to remember that. So go ahead and finish your thoughts, sir.
Oh, go ahead, David. Nope, we'll pick up from right where you're at.
Let's talk about your mission and help us to understand the scope of what you and your team are charged to do in Afghanistan.
Absolutely. Well, anyone can appreciate the significance of a country possessing its own Air Force. Of course, we in the United States are very fortunate. For many, many years now, we've enjoyed what the benefits that come from the ability to project power within one's own borders, the ability to respond to humanitarian disaster, the ability to prosecute those who, if you will, or try to work against the very values of the society, and all the host of capabilities that come from having an independent and a viable Air Force. In this very, very unique mission set, we're the latest in a line of individuals who are privileged to come alongside our Afghan partners and help them in the process of developing a professional, fully independent, and operationally capable Air Force that meets the security requirements of Afghanistan, not just today, but tomorrow as well. I would tell you, although many people don't realize it, there's a long history of Air Force presence within Afghanistan. Matter of fact, it goes back almost 90 years. And throughout the times that we look that they had some type of air capability, or the times that we see the country, at least its government and other forms there, that were able to better serve their people and have a more rounded engagement, if you will, with those across the globe. And so now we've undertaken this mission. We started it a couple of years ago, and it will continue until the end of 2017. It's certainly a challenging task, but I think anything worth doing is certainly challenging. And I can tell you it's a privilege to work alongside our Afghan partners, but also in my capacity as the NATO Commanding General, I have the great privilege of working with 17 coalition nations around the world who together are serving the Afghan people and helping them achieve something they can be proud of, but more important, is going to deliver hope for this country long into the future.
I'm joined by my co-host for General Leadership, U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Michel, who again has taken on the duties of Commanding General, NATO Air Training Command, Afghanistan, and commander of the 438th Air Expeditionary Wing. This mission in Afghanistan and this mission with those 17 partners is critical. How so, and why is this critical to our progress in that theater?
Yes, David. Well, as I alluded to a moment ago, the Afghan Air Force is critical to the effectiveness, one, of the Afghan National Security Forces. So as we appreciate, could you imagine the United States engaging in any type of conflict or any type of engagement just on the ground in today's world? I mean, we can't even think that way. One, the ability to project global power is clearly one of the greatest strengths of America, but even within the borders of a country like Afghanistan, ground forces have, when you connect air to that, it becomes an exponential capability to achieve their objectives. So now what we've seen is the Afghan National Security Forces on the ground are dramatically increasing their ability to accomplish their mission because they have their teammates in the air that can support them in all capacities. And here's what I mean. Just in the last couple of years, there was no ability to go out there and, if you will, do air assault. The elite commandos and others that I serve with here in the Afghan force, they're able to go in there now and do what their nation needs them to do. When they have wounded, their CASEVAC missions, casualty evacuation, they can now move their wounded. What used to take hours of putting their wounded on trucks and driving them across the country, we literally can go out there now, or the Afghans can, and they can actually retrieve their wounded in simply a matter of less than an hour. They are achieving things that previously no one thought was possible. So for a nation to truly be the kind of country it needs to be internally and externally, it needs a viable Air Force. And we're making great strides. Don't get me wrong, we still have a lot of work to do, but every day is almost a new milestone in what they're accomplishing as an Afghan nation.
When you talk about milestones, it brings up the question where we are in this mission, in this timeline, and your duties over there as Commanding General. So where are we now, General Michel?
So, David, what we find today is the Afghan Air Force is literally at its turning point in its growth. The quality and progress of operations as training is evident in a host of recent successes and new capabilities. For instance, I've talked to you about casualty evacuation. So with using a C-208 platform, one of the platforms that they have, they're able to do that very well. I've talked about air assault. Again, that connector, and you know from your time in service, the ability for the ground to be supported from the air. Tremendous leap forward. At the same time, we're seeing massive improvements in command and control as we appreciate the business of coordinating events on the ground with events in the air can be sophisticated. And that takes specific training, specific platforms, and specific technology. We have integrated that, and the Afghan forces are utilizing those type of capabilities more and more now to be able to do everything from we're working to fix their own planes, to fly their own planes, to command and control their own planes, to recover their own planes, and to actually take care of their men and women. So across the life cycle, and this is that inflection point year. I say that because we all appreciate in the next year, year and a half, We'll have a drawdown in theater of the bulk of forces, and there'll be a percentage, some number to be determined, that will be left in country to largely do the advising mission. That is what this mission is. It's very unique. Let me add, one of the privileges of leading at this very, very dynamic time here is this particular organization, this particular wing that I have the privilege to work with every day is the only mission like this of its kind in the world for the United States. It's truly fantastic. We appreciate being here at a historic time, and I so look forward over the course of this next year of the continued progress we're going to make in helping the men and women of Afghanistan continue to build a resilient nation.
My co-host for General Leadership throughout the entire series, Brigadier General John Michel, who is speaking to us from Afghanistan, where he is the commanding general of a NATO Air Training Command in Afghanistan and commander of the 438th Air Expeditionary Wing. We'll take your calls at 866-95-PATRIOT. This is a very unique opportunity for you to ask a question for General Michel. 866-957-2874. You can send in your questions on Twitter at David Webb Show. We have a great lineup tonight. We'll be joined by the doers, those that do. Papa Joe, you'll get to meet Papa Joe, and you'll also get to meet Benjamin Kohlmann, and we'll talk about innovation and just so many things that go along with the concept of service and the reality of service as it exists. And we also have on the line, and we'll get to him in a few minutes, Colonel Matthew Fritz, who is our backup in case we run into any issues with the general, again, live from Afghanistan. We'll go to the final question before we wrap up this segment, General. What are some of the challenges, significant challenges that you face? You are leading a large force, a complicated force, a multinational force. What are those challenges?
Well, as you can appreciate, and as you indicated there, we'll start first with there's language barriers. Clearly, when we say advising, we are shona bashona, meaning we're shoulder to shoulder with our Afghan partners. And so the goal isn't we show, and like anything, we then let them go do. It is their Air Force we're building. And so when you have you have some cultural dynamics, we have some language dynamics, and although we trade for those, as we can appreciate, that sometimes makes it challenging. As I indicated, we have 17 other nations. All nations operate slightly different, so we always have to consider what nation are we working with in this particular context, what are their cultural sensitivities. And I'll be honest and tell you, every nation has its different rules of engagement. So certain nations can only be used in certain ways. So just on the people dynamic, you can see how complicated it is. We are also bringing in a whole series of technology. Matter of fact, in any Air Force that has a couple of airplane platforms or helicopter platforms to be sophisticated, I would tell you we are building an Air Force that is going to have 7 different platforms. The reason it has to be that number is we are literally developing the capability for them to develop their own training in-house. We've made marvelous strides in pilot training here in country, both in the fixed wing and the rotary wing. We then are building an academy so that they can train a professional corps in education. We have built, and we're working on language institutes so that the language of aviation is English. And so that's before you even get off the ground. Then the 7 platforms allow them to do the host of missions that they need to succeed. So we have technology challenges. We have literacy challenges. And so when you compound all these together, it's a very complicated situation, and that's how we have to approach it in a very methodical way. But that also what makes this story so amazingly powerful. We have shown, and more importantly, the Afghan people have shown a willingness, no matter how hard, to lean in. They know that this is important for their families. This is important for their nation. And again, David, it is a privilege. So it's hard. There's a myriad of challenges every single day. But as I mentioned a moment ago, anything worth doing is going to be hard.
And we certainly understand that. I know that this audience and Americans support you in your mission. give all of our best to the men and women over there who have raised their right hands willingly and serve this nation and, in fact, serve those that seek freedom everywhere, General. Let's bring in Colonel Matthew Fritz. And just as an added benefit to the show, the Colonel is in his final day of training or final days of training at Fort Dix in New Jersey, and then he will join General John Michel in Afghanistan. Colonel Fritz, good to talk to you, sir.
Good evening, David. I'm honored and privileged to be sharing the airwaves with General Michel and these teammates here tonight.
Well, not only do you share it, but you are our backup. You are the general's backup in case something goes down with the lines.
Well, in 2 short weeks, General Michel will be, for the second time in my career, my boss again when I join him there in Kabul for my upcoming year-long deployment. As you said, right now I'm here in New Jersey at Joint Base McGuire-Dix-Lakehurst, enjoying my last day of training at the Air Advisor Academy. And it's a wonderful program, educating airmen in the combat, communication, and cultural skills it takes to be an effective advisor, capable of working smartly with our Afghan counterparts. The program has been rigorous, challenging, but ultimately extremely valuable. I say the trainers here in this particular program are experts in combat skills, field craft, language, culture, legal, interpersonal skills training, and they created an amazing curriculum for us. And best of all, I now have the ability to deploy downrange with 30 built-in friends and comrades thanks to my classmates in this course. The upcoming year in Afghanistan, my 9th deployment in 20 years, will be challenging and action-packed, but the knowledge that I'll be sharing it with such highly trained classmates and friends, plus a great commander, there's my plug, is what makes it all possible. I'm looking forward to the challenge ahead.
It is a good thing that we have you as a fill-in and as the backup to General Michel, because as we speak, his line just dropped. The general is in Afghanistan, so we'll have him back on the line shortly. And in perfect timing, here we have Colonel Matthew Fritz. So, you see, we planned well. We planned to execute and have a backup to our plan, Colonel.
Well, they always say no plan survives first contact with the enemy, so here we stand.
All right, well, what we'll do is we'll hold the calls when we come back. Colonel Matthew Fritz, Monty Fritz, will stay on the line with us. And when we come back, we'll have Papa Joe. Joe Bradford is one of the country's most respected leaders and advocates for at-risk fatherless children. We're talking about service tonight, and it's not just service to your nation and military service, but service to your community. As an author, co-producer, teacher, speaker, and program developer, Papa Joe serves through his unique ability to unite teams for active service and love to the least fortunate among us. He is simply known as Papa Joe in all circles of influence that he touches. He serves as the CEO and the founder, along with his wife Denise, of Elijah's Heart. It is a 501c3 charity and an educational nonprofit that served thousands of children and families over the year, and he holds the very rare honor of having his triumphant life story inspire a major motion picture, and that picture, Unconditional. As an humble servant of Christ, Papa Joe seeks to impact people and cities with an unstoppable move of love in action through the National Walk of Love program and other powerful methods. When we come back from our break, we'll be joined by Papa Joe Bradford, Colonel Matthew Fritz, and as soon as we get the line reconnected to Afghanistan, Brigadier General John Michel, again, the commanding general, recently assumed the duties of commanding general, NATO Air Training Command, Afghanistan, and commander of the 438th Air Expeditionary Wing. 866-95-PATRIOT, 957-2874, on Twitter at David Webb Show, and the website GeneralLeadership.com.
This is the David Webb Show.
We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use these words as the backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline.
The David Webb Show.
866-95-PATRIOT, 957-2874 on Twitter at David Webb Show. And you can also follow General Leadership on Twitter. We have that all out there on our Twitter. The full team, the hashtag General Leadership for tonight. General John Michel is in Afghanistan. We have lost that connection. We're working to reestablish, or he's working to reestablish that connection. So we'll have the general back shortly, I hope, and joined by our backup plan, but certainly not a second banana. He will report to General Michel Colonel Matthew Monty Fritz, who was at Fort Dix in New Jersey, getting ready to head out to Afghanistan and report to his boss, General John Michel. And on the line, I am pleased, and more than pleased, as an example of service to your community. One of the doers is among us now, and he is Papa Joe Bradford. His life story inspired the movie Unconditional. And Colonel Fritz and Papa Joe, what a great team you've not only put together at General Leadership, but your partners. And to you, Papa Joe, welcome to General Leadership in the David Webb Show.
Thank you very much. I feel very humbled and honored myself to be on a line with people that God has exalted so much. So, the honor is all mine. I'm so glad to be here with you guys.
Well, you started out in a small country town. You're a Nashville guy, by the way, one of my favorite cities in the country. And how did you come to do this? What led you in your life story to your mission and to the building of Elijah's heart?
Well, honestly, I believe just like gas is the fuel for vehicles, I believe humility is the fuel for a servant. And what happened, I basically went through a process in my life where I was humbled greatly. I was one of the original computer hackers in the early 80s. And at the point of graduating with honors from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, on a dare, I hacked into a bank the way it had never been done before. And this changed the whole path of my life. And through a crazy series of events, I was landed back in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had then contracted a rare disease. I lost both my kidneys, and so that humbled me even more. And my wife and I lost all sources of income, and we ended up into the projects of inner city America. And there, we were placed into a situation where we had to serve children. We were met by this deaf girl on our front door when we first moved into the projects. And my wife gave her a piece of candy. Well, we found out there were 50 children living on that street. And what happens when you give one child a piece of candy? The whole community comes, running to your door.
Exactly. You've got 20 other children going, where's my candy? Did you bring enough for the class kind of approach?
Exactly. And we didn't ask for this, but it's like they were placed right there on our doorstep. And the way Papa Joe came about, what brought the servanthood is that my wife and I do music with children, and at a rehearsal, we had about 60 to 70 inner city children, and a 12-year-old girl came to a rehearsal. She had been beaten. Her face was swollen. And so my wife and I, we kind of counseled and talked with the child. And then moments later, her little sister came up to me and said, "Will you be my daddy?" And I thought the child was playing with me. And then another child walked up and said, "Well, will you be my daddy?" Before I knew it, there were 30 to 40 children surrounding me, asking me, seriously, "Will you be my dad?" They wouldn't.
But just if I could just halt you for a second, that question, what does it feel like, Papa Joe, when you hear that question, not from one, not from two, but this became almost a chorus, it sounds like?
Yes. It was, it was heartbreaking. The reality of these children, so many children being without fathers, really just it was thrust into my face. They didn't ask me for my qualifications. They didn't ask me if I grew up with a dad, which I didn't. They just thought that the reward for being there with me would be that I would be their dad, and it broke my heart. And so I believe, that day I went home and said a prayer. Next week I came back. They said, "Well, Mr. Joe," I said, "No, my name is Papa Joe." And so at that point, I believe my name was changed to be a servant to those who are the least of these. And ever since then, as was years ago, that has been my mission, to be a servant to those who are in need.
Papa Joe Bradford on the line with me during tonight's General Leadership, where we focus on service. Colonel Matthew Fritz training and getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan to join General John Michel, who has taken over as the commanding general of NATO Air Training Command. Colonel, when you hear the story of Papa Joe, and you brought Papa Joe to this show, how do you react to that?
Well, David and Papa Joe, I have to say it's an honor to be here on the line with you. One of my favorite titles in my personal life is that of father. It's an honor to me and my family. So that so many children would reach out to you in a moment of need like that and ask you, beg you to take on the title of Papa is an amazing and an encouraging, almost disheartening at the moment, but encouraging for the fact that you picked up that mantle and you ran with it when you saw the need. That is service. Back in May of this year on GeneralLeadership.com, we published an article titled "The 12 Virtues of Leadership," and service was one of those basic foundational virtues of leadership. And if you do a search, there's no less than about 3 pages worth of articles that have the word service in there. So obviously, it is more than foundational. It's critical to the concept of leadership. Papa Joe epitomizes that day in, day out, and he did it from a very, very tough start. I'd have to say the story is amazing. The movie was fantastic, and the autobiography that you put together, Papa Joe, was a great read.
Well, I'm thankful. I honestly didn't think anyone would read the book. I mean, my wife and I, we come straight out of the inner city, and I've traveled a lot of the nation over the year. And, you never believe that you're going to be placed in a position to inspire others. It's not something that you wake up in the morning and think. Well, I realized there's so much need for people to be served. I think to be a great lover, to carry the message of love, you have to serve. And I believe that it's a contagious thing. We have a program called the Walk of Love that I think you guys mentioned, and basically it's just pulling a coalition together to take care of needs. I visited a home, a single mother with 6 children, and I went to the restroom. I noticed there was no toilet paper there. There was a Yellow Pages phone book, and a third of the pages were randomly torn out. And this little child was using the Yellow Pages as toilet paper. Now, I believe this shouldn't be in our country. And so the essence of servanthood is simply doing a little thing, giving this child some toilet paper, taking care of basic needs, so that a child can have honor, and, our parent can have honor. And I believe this is something that anyone can do. And so that's kind of what we teach as we go, throughout the nation. Look, just be a servant. The greatest, I believe, is a servant.
What are some of those practical steps that people can take in their own lives, Papa Joe? Things they can do. They can even be small things, but they can combine and they can build a foundation.
I actually believe it starts at home. My wife is pregnant with our 8th child, and that's saying a lot because And so we actually are learning servanthood right here in our own home first. And as we learn it there, it becomes a character trait. It becomes a habit, so that when we leave the house, we can share with others. But just here, my wife, for example, I grew up thinking that women should wash the dishes. It was just something I believed because that's what, I saw, around me. Well, my grandmother taught me, she said, well, there'll come a day where you might have to do the dishes. You might have to cook. And so I count it an honor now to serve my wife. She's pregnant. She can't move around the way, she normally can. I count it an honor to serve her just by simply doing the dishes, simply by cooking, taking the time to get a cookbook and cooking something that, I hadn't cooked before. And it becomes a fun thing, and she's excited. She feels more loved. And so when I leave my home, I've got that character trait built into me. And so it isn't a job. It's actually a practice, a character trait that people, can carry outside the home. So to begin at home, to begin servanthood at home, I believe it's the first place to start.
Well, you've surpassed an incredible medical trial in your personal life. And now, as an inspiration, and for everyone out there, you can go to papajoe.org, the movie unconditionalthemovie.com, and we're putting that up on Twitter as well for those of you who would like to get a copy and watch it and read the book. But when it comes to steps that all Americans, especially those who are in circumstances where they feel they have no option, Papa Joe, not everyone gets to get to a Papa Joe. Not everyone has Elijah's Heart nearby. And there are many great organizations around this country. There are many faith-based organizations, communal organizations, all types. What do you say to them? Because oftentimes they try, but over time you wonder about the success and true success. How couldn't they work better? And how can you measure success?
Well, I believe, it actually depends on what particular subject matter, but I believe that there's success in a practical means because there are practical things that families and children have to have. You give a child a fish, you feed him for a day. Well, children need the fish today. These kids out here, poverty is a big issue in our country and in many countries. So they need a fish today, and there are organizations, like you said, in our area there is like a 211. Just like you dial 911, you can dial 211, and in various areas you have that, where United Way and other organizations have basically formed a clearinghouse of organizations that help organizations that will help with food and clothes and whatnot. And that's one thing. But education is a big one. You teach a child to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. One of the things that we focus on and we teach throughout the country is just that basic thing. How can we, expand or enhance education? We actively look for colleges, higher education, to join with the inner city in every state that we go to. I was called in by the Secretary of State of Florida recently to speak with them. And I noticed that they have programs where they're connecting higher education with the inner city, just tutorial programs, things like that, because the cycle has to be broken. The cycle of poverty can only be broken if these kids and families get an education. And so we teach education. And so practical needs, educational needs, and there are emotional needs that have to be taken care of. For example, a lot of these families, they're stuck in depression, and they have a lot of stress. Sometimes just a basic call from I have to say it, a prayer line. What we do, we bring the church into the mix because we believe that there has to be some type of emotional, spiritual fuel that will ignite in these people's heart that, look, there is hope. So what we teach people is basically practical, educational, and emotional, spiritual fuel, and we help people find that way. And so those three things is what we teach people as we go place to place. And in any city, you can find some kind of source. You can get online nowadays and just Google, basically. But those three areas, practical needs, educational needs, and, emotional, spiritual needs. I would search those three areas right there.
Papa Joe, you are an inspiration, sir. It's not just the book. It's not just the movie. Those are the results of great work and who you are. And often it's said that when you come from trials, you understand the value proposition in life from a different perspective or a deeper perspective. I hear that in you, and your community, this nation is blessed to have you.
Well, I really thank God for what He's done. I was on a dialysis machine 9 hours a day for 15 months, and we couldn't put that in the movie, but that's a long time. It's a big breaking process, and I believe that servanthood is actually a key to our nation. As we learn to serve others, then that grows us. That basically there will be no lack if our country just becomes servants to one another.
Well said. Papa Joe Bradford, the foundation is Elijah's Heart. And, sir, it's been a real pleasure to have you here on General Leadership.
Well, thank you. Like I said before, the honor is mine, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Colonel Matthew Fritz still on the line with us. Colonel, what an inspiration. Before we go to break, and unfortunately we don't seem to have a reconnection with General John Michel in Afghanistan, but standing in for the general is Colonel Fritz. I'm inspired. I listened to this story, and here is a doer, Colonel. Here is someone who went through trials, as Papa Joe did, and then stepped up and said, I have more to offer.
I'll tell you, David, General Leadership, we believe leadership's a choice. More than that, we believe example influences change. In that vein, one of my associate curators, my friend and associate curator, Garth Sanjaniti, he's also our lead curriculum development manager, contacted the team and said, hey, I just watched this movie about this guy named Papa Joe, and you're not going to believe his story. It epitomizes the values that we talk about every day, serving others by being responsible, sharing generously by being humble, and more than anything, and most importantly, walking the talk by being accountable. He not only does that himself, but he teaches everybody around him how important that is each and every day. I'm honored that he was here on the line with us tonight.
He certainly is a reflection, a doer of what we do here the first Wednesday of every month when we give you leadership advice from America's most trusted leaders. The website is GeneralLeadership.com, spearheaded by my friend and now Commanding General of NATO Air Training Command, Brigadier General John Michel, who was on the line with us earlier. And I would have to call you, as well as a curator, Colonel Fritz, the aide de camp, the man who is the right hand to the general, whatever your title may be in Afghanistan. It's always a pleasure. I do enjoy our conversations and our emails with you, with the team, with Katie Hargrove, Shauna McKenzie, Garth, and many others. You've built an incredible team at General Leadership, and I urge everyone listening to go to GeneralLeadership.com. This is an ongoing series on the 12 virtues of leadership: courage, compassion, service, which we feature tonight. And again, what a great night to feature that on Purple Heart Appreciation Day. Honesty, persistence, humility, selflessness, hope, creativity, self-control, grace, and integrity. Next, we'll be joined by someone who also comes from the military quarters. Benjamin Kohlmann is a combat-tested FA-18 naval aviator and entrepreneur. And what has been one of the great successes of this nation, entrepreneurship. He has an abiding passion for bringing the most innovative people from both the military and the civilian world into collaborative ventures. And we will talk with him. We will talk with him about how he does this and how this fits into what we talk about tonight: service. Service applied with a practical touch, pragmatism. It's one thing to use the word. It's another thing to put it into action. And it has been one of the great hallmarks of our American culture. We'll be back in just a minute.
This is the David Webb Show. America, it's time to stand up for freedom. The David Webb Show.
Tonight's general leadership, the virtue is service. Leadership advice from America's most trusted leaders, and you can read about it, learn about the team at GeneralLeadership.com, led and spearheaded by U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Michel, who is the leader there and now in Afghanistan as the commanding general of NATO Air Training Command Afghanistan and commander of the 438th Air Expeditionary Wing. And standing in for the general, we lost the signal after the first segment, Colonel Matthew Fritz, who is also in the final days of his training before he is deployed to Afghanistan to serve under General Michel. Our third segment tonight brings Lieutenant Benjamin Kohlmann into the light as one of those examples of service, and in a different way than Papa Joe and the community. Lieutenant Kohlmann is part of the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, DEF 2013, DEF 2013. You know how the military and acronyms go together. He's a combat-tested FA-18 naval aviator. He's an entrepreneur, He's currently a member of the Naval Warfare Development Command and also co-director for the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. There is a much longer bio, but that gives you an idea of the quality of work that Lieutenant Kohlmann is involved in. And Lieutenant Kohlmann, it is a pleasure to have you on General Leadership tonight.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure's all mine.
Well, tell us a little bit more about DEF 2013, your mission, and how you bring both the military and the civilian world into collaborative ventures.
Absolutely. So DEF 2013 was conceived to be a place where military entrepreneurs could get together and talk about their ventures outside the military, but also talk about ways to innovate within the military. We've found that after 10 years of combat, a lot of our junior military members returned from combat having really interesting experiences overseas. They were trained for combat operations, went over there, and had to execute a lot of nation building, kind of doing on-the-ground innovation, building up villages from scratch. And returning stateside to garrison life, that didn't really mesh, per se, with that entrepreneurial spirit they were engaging with overseas. And there were a lot of good ideas being developed by them, but there was no outlet for them to actually find ways to impact the military in a meaningful way at their junior rank. So we elected to create a forum just for these type of individuals, linking them up with senior military leaders to champion their ideas and mentor them. And we really wanted to have it be focused on kind of trends that are shaping our society right now. And two of those are startup weekend events and a TEDx type speaking engagement. So we structured it with TEDx type 20-minute talks in the morning featuring some of the most decorated and influential young military leaders throughout the service. And then the afternoon sessions are focused on breakout groups that are going to select about 10 different issues to tackle. And in these small collaboration ideation groups, come up with a pitch, a 5 to 10 minute pitch that they will pitch to a group of venture capitalists, entrepreneurs, and flag officers on the final day, and hoping to get some of those ideas taken for action.
Colonel Fritz, this sounds like something where I can imagine you joining in. As I've gotten to know you, you think outside the box, and this sounds, as Lieutenant Kohlmann describes it, as a way for that great innovation and that the ability to think outside the box can be put to use to benefit not only our military, but our nation.
Well, David, service starts with being able to do sometimes what's not necessarily the most popular thing to do, and certainly not the easiest thing to do in life. Now, Ben takes this a step further. He crowdsourced an organization called Disruptive Thinkers, and through that, he's championed a successful program for students across the nation. We're talking about a person who thinks outside the box, and that's what DEF is all about. Anybody who's ever gone on YouTube or had the honor to attend a TEDx-style event understands how difficult and how challenging something like this can be. Ben's gone out there and made this happen in the defense community, which is probably one of the most cloistered communities out there in terms of how people think and how sometimes challenging it could be to get people to come out of their box and be a disruptive thinker within the community.
Well, I do like that part, too, being a bit disruptive as a talk show host and a bit of a disruptive thinker. To you, Lieutenant Benjamin Kohlmann, who's on the line with us from Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, DEF 2013, how can this audience and others learn more about your program and share or possibly join in?
Absolutely. Well, we've got our website at def2013.com. There you can find more resources about the team that we've assembled as well as the scheduled events. You can also follow us on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, and on Twitter at DEF Conference. And we're posting articles. We have a blog featuring some of the most preeminent young military leaders we have. But I really want to put a pitch in for my other team members because I could certainly not have done this without them. We've assembled junior officers and some enlisted folks from across the military services. All four are represented on our board. They're all combat tested. They're all, O3s, which is captains or lieutenants and below, and really pushing the envelope on these things. So without their support and help, we could not have put this venue on. So.
And the concept of team, to you, Colonel Fritz, is a very important part of this. Not only the team at General Leadership, my team here at the David Webb Show, but in all our lives, even in our families. The function as a team just even the simple example tonight of a bad connection with General Michelle in Afghanistan, and here you are, the teammate that picks up the ball. This is something that as a nation we should highlight more, and it really is the foundation of service for me.
We've talked about this a couple other times on the show, David, and it seems to be a recurring theme, but teamwork, above all, goes far more than just being a nicety when you're in the military. It's a lifesaver. Being able to share teamwork and being able to share the concept of team with people who think like the folks who will be going to DEF is what keeps the military so strong, and is what keeps the military innovative. To say that teamwork is important is an understatement.
General Michelle will join us next month from Afghanistan. Hopefully we'll have a more stable signal for the hour. GeneralLeadership.com is the website. You also have papajoe.org, a great story by Papa Joe Bradford. DisruptiveThinkers.org, a site I believe I will be visiting, Lieutenant Kohlmann, quite often. And what was your other website?
Def2013.com for the conference.
Def2013.com. Great work to you, sir, and for your service to this nation, and to you, Colonel Fritz, about to deploy to Afghanistan to serve with General Michelle. Thank you, and thank you to the team of General Leadership. Tonight, we highlighted service, one of the 12 virtues: courage, compassion, honesty, persistence, humility, selflessness, hope, creativity, self-control, grace, and integrity. A 12-month series of leadership advice from America's most trusted leaders. And gentlemen, you are excellent examples of all of these. Thank you.
Sir, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it.
And thank you, Colonel.
David,
we'll talk before
much.
you head off to Afghanistan.
Guaranteed. It was a pleasure and an honor. I wish General Michelle could have stayed on the line longer with us tonight, but maybe the Air Force, that'll be one of the things we'll be working on, is how to get these comms a little bit more robust.
All right, thank you. We'll send you with an audio copy. Next, we talk Purple Heart. It is Purple Heart Commemoration Day. We'll be right back.